For the break, I was telling you something. I told you that, look, we must have a conversation about our development. In fact, a conversation about you. Because you want development. But development doesn't come just like that. If you want development, there's a role you must play. That role is to pay your tax. Because as we know in football, every goal counts. And in nation building, every cedi counts. Pay your taxes. It's as simple as that. And once you pay your taxes, you're in a better place. And so this morning, we've been joined by Dr. Dominic Knapp, who's Acting Deputy Commissioner, Strategy and Research Department and Head of VAT Administration of the Ghana Revenue Authority. He's joined us here on the Super Morning Show as part of a conversation about the mandate of, GRA, but also to ensure that at the end of it all of us would pay our taxes. Dr. Knapp, good morning and thank you very much.
Good morning, Winston. Long time.
A long time.
Yes.
The last time you were somewhere, now you are somewhere.
I'm not sure about that.
When I say, the last time you were here, you were a technical advisor.
It's you.
Now you are head of VAT administration.
It's you.
And, in charge of strategy and research department.
Exactly.
That's a huge portfolio.
Oh, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But for those who don't know much about the Ghana Revenue Authority, tell us about the Ghana Revenue Authority and what it's set out to do.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And also, want to thank the management of Joy FM for the support you have been giving us over the years in terms of tax education. We are grateful.
Thank you.
And good morning to your cherished listeners. Yeah, so Ghana Revenue Authority is actually a statutory body established by an act of parliament to, as it were, administer taxes. And also ensure that we enforce our tax laws and raise revenue. Additionally, to provide some tax policy information to the Minister of Finance and also provide statistical data on our revenue performance.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
Great. And talking about set up by law, to help us understand the law that governs the operations of the Ghana Revenue Authority.
Yes, so before then, we had the revenue agencies actually operated in silos. We had a value-added tax service, we had the internal revenue service, we had the customs. So Ghana Revenue Authority was actually, came to actually, as it were, collapse all the others. So we now have Ghana Revenue Authority established by an act of parliament, that is Act 791 of 2009. Okay. So it is actually an amalgamation of all the XY revenue agencies.
And I remember those conversations at the time, because then in the past, IRS, Internal Revenue Services, IRS, then there was VAT, then SEPS, SEPS, Customs, Excise and Revenue Services. But why was that GRA Act introduced?
Yeah, so the operations of the revenue agencies actually didn't augur well in terms of revenue mobilization. If you like, there was that subtle competition instead of collaboration. So it was thought that if they came together as one, then there would be synergy. There will also be reduction or elimination of services which were duplicated, and also to provide efficiency. And I think so far so good. We are seeing the gains having brought all of them together.
Indeed, so far so good. So now that you've explained, because I remember when Professor Mills, won the elections, came into office, that was one of the things that he had said he was going to do. So it was done in 2009. Great. Exactly. But under that new act, the GRA Act, what are the core functions of GRA?
In fact, the core function of GRA is to, first of all, assess taxpayers to tax, and to collect, and to pay same into the consolidated fund. So accountability is very, very important. Every person that is collected must be accounted for. So that is what we perform, But before then, we need to identify the taxpayers. Is that okay? But those ones are always not mentioned. Anytime you talk about GRA, it is just collect and pay. But we first of all have to establish the taxpayer, establish the tax base, be able to assess them appropriately, collect, pay into the consolidated fund. I get it. That is what we perform. And then also provide statistical data on our revenue performance.
I like the tax base and all of that. You have to assess, you have to know your tax collectors. Okay, so let's do it this way. Which taxes does the GRA administer?
We administer basically two types of categories of taxes. We have the direct taxes and then the indirect taxes.
Okay.
When we talk about direct taxes, these are taxes that are levied on activity, on resource, and on income. So if you don't earn income, you don't pay that tax.
Okay. Help me understand. You say the direct tax
Yeah.
levied on activities,
Yeah, exactly.
service,
On resource.
and income.
No, I didn't mention service.
Okay.
On activity, on resource, and on income.
Okay. In effect, if you don't earn income,
You don't pay that tax.
you don't
We
pay
don't,
that tax.
we don't tax capital. We tax profits. So if you make profit, and here we are not talking about accounting profit. We are talking about profit established by tax laws.
Because you've introduced not talking about accounting profit, it's important for those who are listening to us who may not know that difference. Help us understand.
Yeah, so taxation is actually a creature of a statute. So there's a prescription on how income is derived. For example, when it comes to depreciation, if you buy a depreciable asset that you use in helping to earn your income, the accountant has what we call a judgment on how that asset is actually used over a period. But so that one has to do with judgment. So each entity would have its policy, would have its judgment on how that asset is used, is and replaced, as it were. But when it comes to taxation, it is defined by law. Each category of asset has its number of years that it is actually utilized. So if it is so, you realize that the depreciation and then the capital allowance, as the taxman will call it, will not actually synchronize. Even though at the end of the day, yes, it will. But for a period, there wouldn't be any synchronization. Is that okay? Now, in that case, if you are determining accounting profit, the accountant will use the depreciation because that is what they have actually determined. But when it comes to taxation, we will disallow the depreciation and rather introduce capital allowance, which in most cases is always higher than the depreciation.
We're not going into that further.
And let me just also add another one. The accountant will always make provision for doubtful debts, debts that may potentially, be bad. But for the taxman, no, until it is bad, it is not allowed.
Yes,
so
sometimes you must make provision for uncertainties.
Yes, yes, you should.
Yes.
In accounting, but when it comes to taxation, we want to see anything that is verifiable. It should also be objective. Are you getting it?
So your impairment sometimes may not, really apply
Exactly.
in the tax.
Yeah.
I get it. So that's interesting. Which means that, but there's also a situation, and I just want your thoughts on this, okay? Because we realized that recently the modified taxation scheme, they say, oh, okay, so for those people who are not, properly accounting and all of that, if you look at your total turnover, small percentage is paid. That in that case, for instance, since we're talking about profits here, I know there are people who would probably ask and say, but I've not been able to identify my profits. Why am I paying this? What do you tell those people?
No, but before you ask the question, let me just exhaust it. You asked the categories of taxes that we administer. I mentioned the direct tax. Let me just talk about the indirect tax as well. Otherwise, it will appear as if GRA only collects direct taxes. Then we also collect indirect taxes, or we administer indirect taxes. And that one is taxes on transactions and activity. This is where VAT on services, come in. We were talking about services earlier. And also customs, duties, both imports and exports. So these are the taxes that we administer.
Okay.
Now, to come to your question on modified taxation, the point actually is that there are some persons that are operating in the informal sector. Taxing them actually has become very Herculean. They are making income, but they have to be taxed anyway. So over the years, we have been trying to look at ways to actually get them to also contribute. Because as we said earlier, taxation is actually the lifeblood of every country. Is that okay? It's the oxygen the country actually lives on. So they have to contribute. Now, what we have come to realize is that we need to actually come up with a strategy to get them to pay, the tax. So the modified taxation basically are persons whose turnover, are you getting it, are so small that we still would want them to actually contribute. Is that okay? That is how come we have come up with that strategy to ensure that we are able to get them to pay their taxes. especially persons that cannot account for VAT because their threshold is actually below. We want them to fall under the modified taxation so they can also contribute to our socio-economic growth.
Okay. So this is for people normally within the informal sector.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay, I get it. There are some people also who like operating sole proprietorship. So when you ask this, so they don't file their accounts at the Office of the Registrar of Companies. So they try to deal with the system, but they also qualify under the modified taxation.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it's for individuals, actually. The modified taxation is for individuals. But if you are a company, no, you don't come under the modified taxation.
Okay. But you've talked about, identifying your taxpayers. There's always that point that as for GRA, you always collect. How do you protect taxpayers? How does the Act protect the rights of taxpayers?
Yes, so we administer taxes, but we have to also ensure that the taxpayer is protected. How do we protect it? Confidentiality. Whatever information that you share with GRA remains confidential, unless maybe the court asks that we should provide that. Or for statistical reasons, the Ghana Statistical Service needs that information, or the Minister of Finance. Otherwise, it is confidential. Because we need to protect you to be able to do your business. So the law, yes, allows us to administer taxes, but we have to also ensure that we protect your business, we protect you, and whatever data that you have shared with us.
Okay. But what if I disagree with you? Okay, let's say you've done the assessment. You've said this is how much I must pay. You've come in there and you have the conversation with my accountant and you say, no. This is what it's supposed to be. And I say, I disagree. What are the avenues available to me?
Yeah, so the point is that the teeth and then the tongue have been quarreling, but they never get separated. So we don't expect that our taxpayers will not disagree with us. Yes, they should. But when they disagree, the law provides avenue for redress. The law says that in the first place, when you are served with a decision by the Commissioner General, you have within 30 days to actually object. That is, if you are not satisfied, you don't want it. So you have that avenue where you say that I disagree. But you have to do that in writing. And you have to provide clearly the basis for the disagreement. Why you are disagreeing with the Commissioner General. Once you state all those things, then the Commissioner General is bound to actually look at it. But there are two categories. We have taxes administered by customs and taxes administered by the Domestic Tax Revenue Division. When it comes to customs, the law says that before the Commissioner General will determine your objection, pay all the taxes. Pay all the taxes so that the Commissioner General would determine. If it has to be a refund, they will refund. The reason is because if you look at custom operations, they are done at the ports. We don't want congestion. Clear the place. Object. When you have a case, then you would have justice actually meted out to you.
How sure am I that after clearing I'll have justice?
Oh, no, oftentimes. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk good about GRA when it comes to refund, when it comes to reducing, their taxes based on objections that they have actually filed. Those things are out there. There is preponderance of evidence to show that indeed GRA is actually listening. Now, when it comes to direct taxes, the law says that there may be some tax types that you are exposed to. Those ones you don't have any problem with, pay those ones. And those ones that you have problems with, pay 30%. However, the Commission has the right to vary it, to suspend it, or to vary, to suspend, or to vary, suspend, or to waive.
To waive, yeah.
Yes, Commissioner has that right. Is that okay? But in doing so, he has to look at the need to raise revenue and also to ensure the integrity of the tax system. Is that okay? Yeah. That is the administrative, process.
You've talked about the need to raise revenue. Yeah. And for me, it's very, very important. How does GRA support national development?
Basically, so as I said, we raise revenue. So it means that is what.
So basically,
we raise revenue to support.
You raise revenue for us. So whenever we're talking about development,
GRA, yes,
GRA must raise that money that we need for development.
Otherwise, it will be very difficult because government must support education, government must support health, agri, and so on and so forth. Government does not do business, so the only way government can raise revenue is through taxes, and GRA comes in handy to ensure that it is able to raise adequate revenue. But in doing so, we do it fairly. It doesn't mean that we have to cheat the system to make money for government. No.
Okay.
Are you getting it?
So I get it. So if we're talking about the roads, we say we need to build more roads. If the roads would only be built if we pay our taxes.
Clearly. You see, oftentimes we hear, oh, government takes loans to build roads. Government takes loan to
They must pay the
provide
loans.
Yes. But how is it liquidated? How is the loan liquidated? How is it paid back? We do so through taxes.
Great.
So we all have, a big hand.
We all have a role to play. Dr. Dominic Knapp, before we wrap it all up, I mean, what should the public take away from this whole conversation that we've had so far?
We just want the public to appreciate the fact that, yes, we mobilize revenue, but we do so fairly. We do so having in mind that we need to protect them. We do so also trying to listen to them and then to ensure that we provide them the best services that is needed. You realize that, now we do online filing, online payment, and so on and so forth. So we have done that because GRA is actually a listening entity, and we have listened, and we are also looking at global practices just to ensure that we are able to provide efficient services for our taxpayers.
Great. Let me just add that, look, in building of a nation, every city counts. Every city is very, very important. Okay? So we will play our role. You must play your role also. And you play your role by, first of all, paying your taxes. These days I like accountability, but before you ask somebody to answer questions, you should also have done the right thing.
Yeah.
So do the right thing, and now begin to demand accountability. If you don't pay your taxes, then you're always asking how much was spent here, how much was spent there. Pay the taxes. Then you can beat your chest and say, okay, I've done my part. You should also do your part. Thank you very much, Dr. Dominic Knapp, who's
Thank you very much.
Deputy Commissioner, Strategy and Research Department and Head of VAT Administration, GRA.